viewers, welcome again to the MNL Hotseat program brought to you by MNL and also partnered by Gemcon Consultancy. My name is Thomas Mangwiro, and today I'm joined by Peter Garwe, a member of the Harare Volleyball Association and also a law expert. Welcome to the show, Peter.
Thank you very much, Thomas.
And today we are talking about contracts and the player transfers. That is a thorny issue in our volleyball in Zimbabwe. But firstly, Peter, is Zimbabwe volleyball a Boozers League, professional league, and amateur league? What is it really?
All right, first and foremost, I think I'll say the league it's a semi-professional league. Certain aspects have been captured in respect of making it a semi-professional, and one of those aspects relates to the topic in question, which is issues of contracts. And in that regard, we've gone past the issue of amateur, and the aim is to get professional, but we are in between the amateur and the professional, and that's why.
But it's surprising that you are saying it's semi-professional when those who are playing the game are saying we are in a Boozers game. What's your take on the players and administrators' views that they are in Boozers rather?
Yeah, I don't blame them when they comment on that, using those words. But one thing for sure is an association cannot just run a Boozers league. And such an association like Harare Volleyball Association or any association cannot depart from its mandate to bring about professional players. So it's a step. So I don't blame them, but the major aim is for them to professionalize the sport, and their attitude should then portray that we need to go professional. So yeah, it's a stage.
But for sentiments to be aired, there has to be one part which is portraying the game as amateur. In your opinion, who is to blame? The administrators, the owners of the teams, or the players?
Well, it's a collective effort when you want to achieve something. And part of that issue may be relating to certain areas that we need to depict so that the league can be better, so that the players can be better, so that the administration can be better. So we start from a level backing. And remember, I always say that the athletes are the major stakeholders of the sport.
Yes.
So they need to conscientize themselves that their presence should make them professional. So it's a start, it's a phase. We are getting there bit by bit, educating and giving them understanding, knowledge of how to make them professional.
So we can say there's a lack of awareness among the players.
Exactly, I could say there's a lack of awareness, and that awareness also has to come from the administrators of the clubs. They should push so that the athletes are aware of what is happening on the ground.
Because Peter, it's sad to hear people saying we are in a Boozers league when other people are pouring in a lot of money. We have seen a lot of times when transfers, players, and big value is being put on players, and other people are saying it's a Boozers league.
Yeah, it's quite sad, as you have rightfully put, but
who is to blame?
We can't put a finger on anyone. I don't want to talk about the economic situation. That's another
What about
factor.
The association?
The association.
The association.
Well, if we're talking about the mother association, we first talk about the ZVA.
Yes.
And ZVA at this day and age has tried its best to cascade its mandate to the provincial associations. And as HVA, we have tried to then put that ball into motion. Yes, there are certain things that are lacking. The way HVA is doing their business cannot be compared to how maybe Manva is doing or Midva is doing. It's a process, and the situations are different for these associations.
But in some cases, we have seen that provincial associations are better organized than the mother association.
Well, I don't want to kill that part, but just know that these associations are.
I can give you an example. Here I've got the FIVB sports regulations as of 31 May 2024, and one of the items say each national federation is the right to determine the eligibility of its players subject to the FIVB statutes, of course. But does ZVA have transfer and player status regulations in place?
ZVA doesn't, and they rely much on what the Harare Volleyball Association has put in the transfer policy document, which thou is transferred.
So
to ZVA.
the association is having its affiliates, rather its members, running the show for them.
It's a collective effort. So,
But in some
HVA
cases,
is part of ZVA.
HVA may have some of those regulations regulating those things, but it cannot go beyond its jurisdiction.
Indeed, that's precisely the point. But in this instance, I don't want to put ZVA under the bus. And by trying to avoid conflicting the ideas of ZVA and HVA, these are bodies that aim to develop the sport. So, in as much as this fracas is happening, ZVA has a mandate which FIVB has told each national federation to do. So, it has to start from the bottom. So, HVA is taking the initiative.
There's chaos in the transfer market. There's always problems with payments on contractual obligations on some parties, and the mother association is nowhere to be found. But HVA and Manicaland, for example, do you relate on these regulations? HVA regulations, do they apply to Manva?
No, they do not apply. And one specific reason is there's no such document which is under the ZVA which depicts issues of transfers and all. But they have, I think, under ZVA that they have something that they've put, but not in the terms of a transfer policy document which talks about transfers. So
a player can play for Harare City in Harare and go on to play for Crocs in Matnot.
No, that's not what that can happen.
Okay,
that can
you
happen.
give me the answer in the next part of this episode. Well, viewers, if you are just joining us, this is the Hotseat, a program brought to you by MNL and also partnered by GEMCON. And today we are talking about player status, contracts, and player transfers. And today I'm being joined by Peter Garwe, a member of the Harare Volleyball Association Executive Committee, and also a law expert. We are going away for a few minutes, and when we come back, we'll continue with our conversation. Welcome back, viewers. This is the MNL Hotseat, brought to you by the Next Generation Sports and also partnered by GEMCON Consultants. My name is Thomas Mangwiro, and today I have Peter Garwe joining us in the discussion about contracts, player transfers. And when we went away in the first segment, we talked about players playing for two teams in one country. Peter, we say the player can play for Harare City and Crocs in Victoria Falls.
Yes, well, I can't answer for ZVA, and at this point I can only concentrate on HVA matters, and HVA is very clear under transfers that a player can only play for one club per transfer window.
So what does the Harare Volleyball Association have? The statutes governing the player transfers?
Yeah, I think if you are now aware, the previous executive initiated the HVA player contracts and transfer policy, which was adopted in 2023. And its main aim was to, in fact it was 2022, and its main aim was to properly structure how players are transferred from one club to the other, the contracts, and certain issues that relates to player welfare as well.
Yes.
So I believe that document is, yes, has been met with mixed feelings, but it has taken the sport to another level. And
Is it working?
Yes, it is working. And when we came into office last year, we kind of noticed one or two issues which, yes, I believe they need to be maybe altered, amended, or removed or repealed in our language. So yeah, it's still we still need to see how basic, how better we can push forward the policy document.
So if there is a player dispute among clubs, let's give for example, we are going to the Zim Open during the Easter. There is a player is on the O2s for Black Rhinos and Highlanders. What happens?
The simple fact is a player has to be affiliated to one club, and that club, you see, that's where they maybe probably say the challenge between
So
the police
who presides over the disputes?
Initially, there should be a dispute resolution committee, and under HVA we have that committee, and that committee is spearheaded by Mr. Chinyani Herbert.
That is for Harare.
That is for Harare. Then that's why I say I can't speak much about ZVA, but when such happens, it's wise enough if we see a player then having an O2, his name or her name for Black Rhinos and Highlanders, obviously then have to look at the contract, and these are the issues which are then monitored by the dispute resolution committee or any committee which is under ZVA which deals with athletes.
Okay, so let's talk about these transfers. The window period. Who determines the window period?
Right. For Zimbabwe volleyball, the window period is governed by the ZVA, and in this instance, the window periods, or I am now calling it the summer period. Window period has to start on the first day, the first Monday after the National League finals, then ends on a prescribed date. In this instance, it was ending on the 31st of March. Then we have the second window, which is open on the 1st of July. We call it the winter transfer window, which ends on the 31st of July. Basically, those are the two windows that are given to clubs to buy, sell, or loan players.
There were problems with some players. When the window opened on the first Monday after the season ended, they were acquired by certain clubs and went to Zone 6. But they confused that with the Zone 6 special window open, so now they can move to another club. Is it possible?
Well, maybe in my response, I think that information to athletes was not fully addressed to. The idea of a player or of an athlete moving to a club, it's done on a specific window period. So remember, before then, ZVA altered the window period so that you can allow a player to go and participate in Zone 6. In 2023 in Lesotho, if I'm not mistaken, there were some athletes who went under certain clubs, but they could not participate because they were not bought in during the window period of July of 2023. So ZVA saw it fit and changed it immediately after the Lesotho 2023 edition. Now the disaster has been met. Now players are bought after the first month of the National League, and their first port of call is the Zone 6. After the Zone 6, their expectation is they are going back to their parent club, but that cannot happen because it's during the same transfer window. So if you have played for Zone 6 for the 10 days they have been in Botswana, then you come back and say, I'm going back to Highlanders, well, at least I was playing for Black Rhinos. That's impossible.
Our players are aware.
That I do not think they are aware. I think that's where the communication breakdown between athletes, the administrators, and maybe the provincial associations and national associations in putting across this point that a player can only move once in a transfer window. regardless there's a Zone 6, regardless there's a African Championship, that's immaterial. The most important thing that athletes move once in a transfer, and that is clear in from our HVA transfer policy document.
Would have wanted the ZVA members to be here talking about this, but unfortunately we couldn't reach them for this episode. But we promise that in the next episodes we'll invite them to iron out this grey area. Now, Peter, let's talk about contracts. What is a contract?
Right. In quick terms, a contract is an agreement between two parties, and that two parties, they agree to certain obligations, and those obligations are signed off with terms, anything that you would agree as parties, then you sign it off by signing document to agree or to affirm yourselves to a particular obligation. So basically that's a contract. It's between two or more people, I should say.
Well, viewers, that was Peter Garwe talking to us about contracts, and this is a topic we have just introduced in this second segment. We are going away for a few minutes, and when we come back in the third and final segment, we'll talk more about issues of contracts. Stay tuned. Welcome back, viewers. This is the third and final segment of this episode. My name is Thomas Mangwiro. This is the Hotseat, and today we have Peter Garwe, a law expert and also a member of the Harare Volleyball Association, talking to us about contracts, player status, and transfers. And now we were talking about contracts, Peter. Is a verbal contract binding?
In terms of the law, a verbal contract is not a contract. So there is no contract which is done verbal. All contracts are deemed to be written, hence you need a signature to affirm that that is a contract. So yeah.
Coming back to the Harare Volleyball Association, based on statistics, how many clubs and players who have contracts between each other?
I haven't gotten the full details of which clubs have formally handed in player contracts, but we have informed administrators that upon having sent their O2s to the Secretary General at a particular specific time that they have been given to have athletes sign contracts, then I think before the start of the Harare Premier Volleyball League, no player or no athlete will participate without a contract. And this is it's binding on all clubs, whether it's an institution, whether it's a uniform force, whether it's a self-funded club. The mandate is simple: no player or athlete will participate without a contract. So our administrators are aware of that.
I understand the contract is an agreement between two parties, but have you gone further in enforcing that the parties compensate each other?
Well, it depends with the agreement of those contracts. HVA said we are not going to be privy to the contents of the contracts. What we're only going to be privy is just to be aware who's signed the contract, and the rest is bound between the clubs and the player. So we are not in a position to control or enforce, but what we can only do is to have athletes sign contracts. We are urging administrators to have their athletes sign contracts, and they need to be aware of what they are agreeing to. If then a player is aggrieved by all those contract issues, then the dispute committee then come in.
What are the essentials of a contract for it not to be null and void?
Right. If a contract is not signed, that's the first and foremost issue, by either parties, this is just a requirement for HVA. Then for the actual contract, a contract can be nullified if one of the parties breach the contract obligations. and there's a specific ways of terminating a contract, which is actually part of those contracts that athletes has to sign. So I believe one or the other, they are not conscientized enough on what a contract should entail, because it's not the duty of the dispute committee to nullify a contract or to terminate. It's within the parties who are within.
Are contracts in the Zimbabwe volleyball sport bound by the labor laws?
Yes, they are there. They are there. Every governing body, and through Sports and Recreation Commission, even through the Zimbabwe Olympic Committee, they entrust that all athletes in a sport should have contracts. And I have highlighted this as well in other forums, that it's so important to adhere to these rules. End of the day, they are beneficial, they're important, and they create a professional approach to the sport, which you want to aim as HV executive, the current executive. You are aiming for a professionalized sport. That's how we're going to bring in sponsors, partners, and all of that. So if you don't have a controlled situation like having a valid contract, then it goes back to what you were saying in the beginning. It's a Boozers League.
If there is a breach by a club, where does the player go?
Right.
How does he air his or her grievance?
Right. The player has a channel which he or she can use, and the channel is to go through the Athletes Commission, which is, I think, in the next couple of days it will be shared to everyone. That committee will then bring the dispute before the Secretariat, HVA, then Secretariat will then bring it forth to the Dispute Resolution Committee as a procedure. Then the Dispute Resolution Committee will then deal with that aspect up until finalization.
Is there any payment by the player to the Athletes Commission?
I think during my time I was an HVA Athletes Commission payment was, I think, in the sum of $10, if I'm not mistaken, so that the matter can be heard. But I'm not so sure if that is still binding or standing. But I think maybe people were unaware that there's money involved, I guess. But this is money which was supposed to then work on administrative costs so that the committee can sit and discuss.
Is it a straight case that when a player complains or raises an issue that Club A is not paying me, they failed to pay me for the past 6 or 7 months, is it straight that the association just puts the issue to a dispute resolution, or they make inquiries?
First and foremost, they make inquiries. They
Does need payment?
Yes, because you are going to investigate on issues which are relating to a player, and you need to go and visit or get approval to those other contracts that we're saying they are not with us. So it's very important that that process is done before the player and the club are then called back for we call it a dispute resolution, and then the decision is made.
So if a player just approaches the courts, there's no problem?
There is no problem
outside your system.
There is a problem because the courts now, they will tell you that you should exhaust all internal remedies. And I have been privy enough for the past 8 years that I have been practicing that. The courts simply say you cannot approach a court like, for example, the labor court without exhausting all internal remedies. And the internal remedies are provided for.
So is it not costly for the players to pay just to make you aware that there is an issue between me and Club A?
Well, that's why I said from the previous executive, there was an issue of a payment, but from the current, maybe that issue hasn't been put forth. But yeah, it is costly on behalf of the athlete to then bring the matter before the dispute resolution committee. Yeah, it's something that maybe the HVA can look at and resolve for the benefit of the athlete.
Okay, so we have seen some cases whereby players, rather clubs, refuse to release players to other clubs, saying they have got a contract, but the contract is verbal. Then the allegations sometimes that we paid fees for you, we did this for you, we bought shoes for you. Is that legal?
That's not legal. In short, and I'll make it brief there, a verbal contract is not a valid contract. So you cannot claim to have a contract about fees, shoes, or groceries, or anything if it's not written. As long as it's written, it's valid and signed by both parties.
So when can a club sell a player?
A club can sell player at any time. At any time, even during this league running. But the player cannot play for another team up until the transfer window. I think it's just similar to football. I think if you follow football, it's the same. A player can have a pre-contract with another team, but only up until a certain period that they can play. So, yeah, it's quite a daunting task for.
Yeah, it's quite a long subject, Peter. Maybe in brief, what can you say to the clubs and players?
Right. The most important thing that HVA is aiming at right now, we want all administrators to assist athletes in understanding issues of contracts. Then the administrators also have to understand issues of transfers, what is important, and most importantly, athletes have to understand the concept of a contract and the transfer, so that maybe you will see, maybe by the time we get to July, athletes should be conscientized of the importance of a contract and how a transfer should work, and that will also help them even in dealing for December Polokwane.
Are we going to see more of their players that commission this year, conscientizing players about issues?
Indeed, definitely there is, and the HGA committee member dealing with that will be steamrolling some programs for that. So definitely, the HVA Athletes Commission will be up and running.
Well, viewers, to the players, I say understanding the basics of contracts is paramount. It is of paramount importance to you as it protects your interest. But most of the players were just going into clubs and playing, and tomorrow you want to move. There are problems there with the administrator saying you cannot move because you are contracted to us. So we are saying from this moment, go out there, make sure your interests are best served by the club you are playing for. This leaves me to thank our guest today, Peter Garwe, the Harare Volleyball Association executive member and also a law expert who graced this show to share insights on the issue, on the subject of law, contracts and player transfers. Peter, thank you for gracing this show.
It's a pleasure. I hope I'll be back again to discuss more on this.
Definitely we'll call you again to discuss, and hopefully we will have other people from the Zimbabwe Volleyball Association and also sports administrators to discuss about this issue. This also leaves me to thank you viewers for always making a choice to watch this show. My name is Thomas Mangwiro, and till we meet again, it's bye-bye for now.